Step into the shadows where dark thoughts erupt like blisters under the skin. Welcome to Shivers, short horror stories. A journey through time, space, and the unearthly fates that lie in wait for us all. Siren Song. Trevor and Alan were two specks on an infinite beach, their shoes in hand, the sand cool and gritty beneath their feet. They shouldn't have been there, but there's always something magnetic about the edge of the world at sunset, where the sky bleeds orange and red like a fresh wound. The waves were monstrous, smashing against the shore with a ferocity that seemed personal. And that undertow? It was like the ocean had a vendetta. "You ever think we'd end up here?" Alan asked, flicking a cigarette butt into the sand. The wind snatched it up and tossed it into the waves. "Nah," Trevor replied, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "This place feels like the end of everything." They kept walking, each step sinking a little too deep, the weight of unseen things pulling them down. The conversation dried up, replaced by the roar of the sea and the call of gulls. Trevor's eyes were scanning the sand, looking for nothing in particular, when he saw it. A small, weathered box, half buried, catching the last light of the dying sun. "Hey, look at this," Trevor said, bending down. Alan squinted. "What is it?" Trevor dug it out, brushing off the sand. "Looks like a wind-up music box. Old, too." He turned it over in his hands, examining the delicate carvings on the wooden surface, the silver latch that gleamed in the dusk light. "Maybe it's worth something," Alan said, but he didn't sound convinced. Trevor's fingers itched with curiosity. He turned the crank, feeling the resistance. As soon as he let go, the box began to play the most hauntingly beautiful melody he had ever heard. Each note seemed to dig into his soul, pulling at memories and dreams. Alan watched Trevor's eyes glaze over. "Do you hear that?" Trevor's voice was distant, like he was already halfway to somewhere else. "Hear what?" Alan asked, a cold knot forming in his gut. "The music. It's incredible." Trevor's tone was reverent, like he'd just been given a glimpse of heaven. Alan shook his head. "I don't hear anything. Are you messing with me?" Trevor wasn't listening. Not to Alan, not to anything but the melody. He dropped the box into the sand, its song still whispering, and started walking toward the water. His movements were slow, deliberate, like a puppet on invisible strings. "Trevor, what are you doing?" Alan's voice rose, panic edging in. "Come on, this isn't funny." Trevor kept walking, the waves crashing against his legs, pulling him deeper. Alan watched, his heart pounding, as Trevor waded further into the ocean. "Trevor! Stop! Come back!" Alan yelled, desperation creeping into his voice. Trevor didn't stop. The water reached his chest, the waves growing larger and more violent. Alan's fear turned to terror as he realized Trevor was being pulled in by the undertow. A large wave crashed over Trevor's head and he disappeared beneath the surface. "Trevor!" Alan screamed, running into the water. He fought against the waves, the salt stinging his eyes, his lungs burning with effort. He dove, searching for any sign of Trevor, but the ocean was vast and dark, and Trevor was nowhere to be found. Exhausted and defeated, Alan swam back to the shore. He collapsed onto the sand, his body racked with sobs. He'd lost his best friend, and the world felt cruel and broken. As he sat there, the sky darkening to night, his eyes fell on the sound box. It lay in the sand, half buried again, the crank still, slowly turning. There was something insidious about it now, something that tugged at the edges of his mind. Driven by a need to understand, Alan picked it up. He opened it, and the melody began to play. For the first time, he heard it. the most beautiful song he'd ever heard, each note a blade carving away his fear and sorrow. He stood, the box slipping from his fingers. He walked toward the water, the melody pulling him along like a marionette. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts, just the song and the sea and the inevitable. He stepped into the surf, the water welcoming him, pulling him deeper. The melody grew louder, drowning out the world. He didn't hear the waves, or the wind, or the desperate cries of his own mind. Just the song and the sea and the silence. The soundbox lay in the sand, its song drifting on the breeze. Another relic, another whisper of the unknown. At dusk, where the shadows grow long and the world holds its breath, the beach remained. A place where the known and the unknown collided, where reality frayed and dreams bled into the sea. And as the night settled in, the wind carried the song across the waves, a haunting echo of a beauty that lured and destroyed.